streaming. Is the data gonna pop over? Okay. So this is what we have before. And yeah, that's supposed to be coming back in my ear. So this is good on the Rude Boy sound. This is good. So why don't I just start the conversation, and I'm going to actually change what the topic is at the end of the day for us. And so in in true Tottenham fashion, or the fans of fashion, is that we have a signing in, and rather than looking at the big picture for the signing, we are tearing that signing apart. And so does Gallagher actually divides the base? I think I can follow up on that headline to ask the question once again: is Gallagher dividing the base? Just about every player will divide the base, because we are a divided base. We are a diverse base, international and otherwise. We're spread all over the world. Obviously, I am talking to you from Pennsylvania in the United States, and you get varying opinion at varying time of the day. Just going around, I don't know if it's going around this morning. Need to finish my sentence. Going around this morning on some of the YouTube channels. And last night I also take a look at it. So what happens is that when you have dominant voices, some through panel discussions, known names, you tend to want to go there for the information. And without naming names, we become a creature of that sometime way of gathering the information. The thing that it actually does for us, though, is it allows you to see snapshot, or what snapshot of what's going on, with some opinions behind it. As far as my channel is concerned, I think I'm going to continue to use the Rude Boy sound, and then try to pull the algorithm in so I could get on the main platforms as any other YouTuber. The name, because the Rude Boy sound doesn't really have a synonymous name like Tottenham in there, so I have to find a way to actually get it in there, so at least the stream gets out, and then we can attract more of the viewing public. Because my intentions here at Tottenham USA, which is the sister channel to the Rude Boy sound for everything Spurs, is that I want to take a look at things differently. I want to be able to look at, for example, looking at Conor Gallagher right now. Which side am I going to be on? I'm going to be on the side that say this is a very good move. I am on the side of saying, well, this is not the time to want to even entertain it, firing Thomas Frank. And the reason why, just to get away from, that Conor Gallagher, and I'll jump back to it, to explain my position as far as Thomas Frank is concerned. Forget about what he inherited from Ange, and look at the structure of the team. It could have been anybody. And managers get hired, managers get fired for different reasons. These are the facts. Ange is not here. Thomas Frank is here. There is a squad that does not fit into everything that Frank wanted to do. And so when you look at what he started out with, which I endorse 100%, when you talk about the Aston Villa effect, I'm not into the Brighton and the Brentford effect of how we should go as a club. I absolutely is offended when fans are saying, let's go be like Brentford, let's go be like Bournemouth, let's go be like Brighton. I absolutely feel insulted, and I tell you why. I've done a little dive into Brentford and look at the players that they buy, right? Thomas Frank was there for a long time, so it takes time to develop those players. I'm just giving you cut and dry my opinion. If you disagree, let me know in the comment. because their ambition, not their ambition, but the pressure to succeed is not as much as, say, a Tottenham. To succeed, they can perform and do whatever they're doing in developing players. So they, in other words, they can go out there and sign Mboma for £5 million or whatever the equivalent of that is. And they can have Mboma there for a time, and then they will actually develop him to what he needs to be. Right? There's no pressure on that. The pressure is more of a club as per Brentford. Are we doing enough to stay to the Premier League? Are we being a mid-table team? And so if that's the case, then the recruitment, it picks up, the coaching picks up, and Thomas Frank has shown that he can coach that. While he's doing all of that, finishing 12th and 11th and 10th, and all of that is good for a club like Brentford. There's absolutely no pressure. They are not one of the teams, when you open up the season and you start to handicap, you're saying, well, they're going to finish in the top 6. There's nothing there in terms of the caliber of players that will tell you that you can peg them as a top 6. So Frank has time to develop. So too in Brentford and Bournemouth. There are no pressure. You don't start out the season, and I'm just keeping it real. Do I start out the season and say, well, Spurs can win the Premier League? Absolutely not. Do I look at Spurs and said maybe Spurs can finish in the top 4? Exactly. When you look at Brentford, Brighton, and Bournemouth, even though their positions right now might be good in the league, and Spurs is 14th or wherever we are, do you really start the season and look at Brighton and said, well, Brighton is going to be a top 6 team this year? You don't see that. But what you'll say about Brighton is that Brighton has good players, have a very good system. Do we say Brighton doesn't have ambition when you're selling Caicedo? They bought Caicedo for £4 million. And they gave back 20% of that to the club to which Caicedo came from. Right? Do we look at that and say, well, Brighton have just sold McAllister? And they sold, Pedro and João Pedro, and they sold, and they're about to sell Baliba, if my information is correct, and all the players, Bissouma for whatever it was at Bissouma. So when you add everything up that Brighton has done over the past 4 years, and I think Mitoma might be on the block as well, they have sold Trossard. So I can go on and on and on and just pluck players that have passed through the Brentford rank, the Brighton rank. And where have they finished by comparison? We turn around and we said, oh, Spurs should be like Brighton. But if Spurs are to adapt the model as Brighton, are we patient enough? I've covered this already. Are we patient enough to say, whoever the manager is, let's give that manager at least 2 to 3 windows for them to get to where they need to be and build a squad that is going to in the mold of that manager? No, we're not going to do that. So let's just not start with the crap about let's be like Brighton, because the things that we keep saying, here's some of the facts that we need to face. If Glasner was available, taking over this squad, how long would it take Glasner before he starts winning? If Areola was to take over a squad like this, and even Javi Hernandez, who is now the flavor of the day, how long would it have taken him to build a squad where he can put his imprint on the football? If you push that to the side, don't forget this. When Potter was at Brighton, everyone wants to play like Potter. Potter goes to Chelsea, where he's getting the money and the caliber of players that he need. What happened there? And so when you start talking about managers needing higher caliber player, can that manager actually take the pressure of coaching a Chelsea team and the caliber players that are coming in? When you're signing what's his name? I forget his name now. Modric. for $100 and something million, and you can't get a tune out of him, right? Pochettino complained endlessly when he was at Spurs. I know we have wet dreams over Pochettino, like he has a pixie dust, and we're saying that, oh, go out there and get Pochettino. But Pochettino went to PSG, right? What did he do at PSG with the three best players in the world at the time? He went to Chelsea. What did he do at Chelsea? I know he was picking up, but the fact of the matter is that Pochettino has failed more where he went after Spurs than succeeding. Overall, he won what? One time at PSG? He hasn't won anything else. So if you're looking at the 6 years that he spent at Spurs, lamented the fact that he was not backed, all his football and everything that is synonymous with him, no one is going to talk about the time that he spent at Chelsea. No one is going to hire him because he was a manager at PSG. Everyone is going to look at what he had done while he was at Spurs. And that's a fact. That is not going to change. And so when a manager gets a chance, as Pochettino did, to have his own program, have his own project, and have his own players, because the players that were coming in was what Pochettino wanted for his squad. That is the players' profile, or players' profile that he wanted, and he got them. What he realized is that taking Spurs from a mid-table team to a top 4 team requires higher caliber players, which Levy was not going to give him. So therefore, in my opinion, of Pochettino, for those who want to bring him back, the project was over. When he did not win, Chase, the 2 years that he tried to make a charge in the Premier League, and he didn't get over the hump, that's his max. When we lost, I think we lost a Carabao Cup under him, or making the final. We went to several quarterfinals and semifinals with him, and we didn't make it. When we went to the Champions League and he screwed it over by starting an injured Harry Kane, or a Harry Kane that's coming back, because he believes so much that as long as Harry Kane is on the pitch, then we'll be okay. It's not just him who did it. Conte did it. Jose Mourinho did it. That as long as we have Kane, then we are going to be okay. And we never developed anyone behind Kane. When Alvin Morata was just about to sign for Spurs, incidentally, he ended up going to Chelsea, and part of it was, what's my role? Pochettino told him, because he said it and has never been refuted, that there's no competition for Harry Kane. Mark you, we can always go back and look at it, the 2020 vision, and say, look what Harry Kane became. But you look at it and say, what if Harry Kane had help? What if Harry Kane was being able to substitute it in some of the games that he went, that he shouldn't even be in the squad for the day, because the managers so believe in Harry Kane that they could even find rest for him. Case in point, Conte, twice. Is it Bergwijn? I don't know if Bergwijn was under Conte or Jose, but whomever said to Bergwijn that you are the direct substitute, and I'm going to get back to Conor Gallagher, you are the direct substitute for Harry Kane. We are not going to sell you in January. My history is a little bit messed up, but the point is what I'm trying to make. Bergwijn was a direct substitute for Harry Kane. That was told to him, right? Either it was Conte or it was Jose, right? Richarlison was a direct substitute for Harry Kane under Conte, right? Vinicius Jr. was direct for Harry Kane under Jose Mourinho, right? Jensen was the same under Pochettino. You tell me how many times you see Harry Kane being, well, Jensen was different. He get a chance to play because Harry Kane was just rounding. But we never gave Jensen a chance to bed in and learn the trade, because we wanted him to be Harry Kane. And that was not fair to him. The league is unforgiving. You're talking players who are coming from a lower league and getting time to bed in. We never gave Jensen a chance, or Jensen, whatever his pronunciation wants to be. We never gave him a chance. So we wrecked that career. We brought Vinicius Jr. in, and Vinicius Jr. could never start a Premier League game. That is how we treat the players that were coming in for Harry Kane. And then we get to Bergwijn because we did not have a real substitute. I can't remember if it is Jose or Conte, so I'm not going to hold that to him. These are the two stats that you should know why we have not developed a replacement for Harry Kane, and we landed right now on Solanke, right? Let me stick with Bergwijn first. Bergwijn was promised that he can't leave in January because he was going to be the direct backup for Harry Kane. Do you know how many minutes Harry Kane did not play because he was substituted for Bergwijn? Or let me twist it around. Do you know how many times Harry Kane was substituted for Bergwijn? Not once. Do you know how many times Bergwijn and Harry Kane are on the pitch together, and Harry Kane is substituted so Bergwijn could carry the attack? Not once. Never happened under that manager. Richarlison was supposed to be the backup to Kane, right? There is no game, to my knowledge, that Richarlison started with Harry Kane and Harry Kane was lifted and Richarlison finishes the match. Even a game that Harry Kane wasn't at his best. There was no game under Conte that happens. There was no game under Conte where Richarlison was a direct substitute for Harry Kane. So when we're here talking about Harry Kane was never replaced, how are we going to replace Harry Kane the minute that Ange came in, right? We're hoping that, yes, maybe it could have happened, but we never. We had Parrott, we have Dane Scarlett as strikers, plus the other three that I named, who were there at the time, and Harry Kane was getting the bulk of the minute, playing way into the 90s. And remember back then, it wasn't substituting, we didn't have 5 substitutions. It was 3. So you can imagine how many minutes those managers put in Harry Kane's leg, because they believe so much in Harry Kane that they forget that we're trying to develop a squad. And then we want to talk about all the other clubs, how well they are run, because the expectations from them is not as vast or intense as where Spurs are supposed to be. And these managers saw Kane as their Derby horse. They were never going to give up not playing Harry Kane. And so when Solanke came in, right, again, I'm not saying Solanke is the best or anywhere close to a Harry Kane, but we expected Solanke to come in and be Harry Kane, right? Maybe we should have gone out and signed a player of Kane's caliber. But the fact of the matter is that no one is going to be as good as Harry Kane in such a short run. And we as fans can't accept that we never develop a player to substitute or make way or allow Harry Kane to get more rest. We rode him right into the ground. And so when Kane left, it just moved away the crutch that we were sitting on, that Harry Kane and Heung-min Son was going to get us those goals. They were going to be our best players, forever. They're going to get old, or they're going to move away because of the ambition. The rest of the squad went to nothing. Because we tend, to be so sentimental to our players. When Dembele, like we like to go back and talk about Dembele was pretty much shot. So at some point he needed to be replaced. And we wanted more of Dembele and more of Dembele and more of Dembele. He too had to Go. Every single player at some point is going to reach the stage where they become the twilight of their time and they needed to go. What we do as replacements sometimes takes so long for them to go. We held on to Eriksson when Eriksson had nothing left. That's us as Spurs. So sometimes we're going to blame the players that come in, but because the players before had given so much and become so synonymous with the club that we cannot give a player that is coming in for a time to develop, or we don't have the patience. And let me get back to Conor Gallagher, because I just wanted to lay that out, paint that picture that we are not patient. We're not patient because of the expectation, and rightfully so. If we want to be a big club, then we have to be able to, like in a case like this where we need a striker and Solanke is injured, maybe we just need to go out there and sign a Marmouche from City. City right now doesn't have any use for him, but City will tell you that they need him just in case Haaland goes down. No, you tell City, I want to pay you $70 million for him, and tell him that you're going to pay him $250,000 in wages because he's that good. He's that good for you, not that for City. So it's not like we can't blow City away with a number. It's that we're not brave enough to do it. And so in this iteration that we're talking about Enoch and what they're providing, then if you're going to provide me with the money, then you have to allow me to spend it. And I really and truly believe pardon me, that Daniel Levy was always following instructions. I don't believe that over 25 years that Daniel Levy never realized that, look, this money has to start going to the players. What was happening was that Spurs were spending the money. And I know we can go in and we can say it was quantity versus quality. Right? We never sell our players in their prime. And that could be part of the problem, that we held on to these players. You know how many players over the 25 years that Daniel Levy was here that we sold in their prime? I mean, really, really good players that we signed or we sold in their prime. And the very few that we brought in their prime. 6 players. I might miss 1 or 2. Gareth Bale, Harry Kane. Harry Kane was on his way down. That we sold for over $30 million. So we hear that Spurs is a club that buy players for resale. Right? Harry Kane is the only homegrown player that we have sold over 30. Is it? Or maybe what we got for Skip? Maybe we got 25 for Skip. But the point is, based on all the players that we brought in, and the narrative, I break some narratives today. The narrative is that Daniel Levy was buying players to make a profit. How much profit did we make from some of the players that we bought? Let's count them up. Gareth Bale, Berbatov, Modric, Kyle Walker, Trippier. Who else can I count? There's not many. There are less than 10 players that we actually sold that we make money on, real money. And I'm not counting Harry Kane because Harry Kane is homegrown. And so when you hear that Daniel Levy's main objective is to buy cheap and then sold for profit, we could even make money from our academy. I doubt we have sold in the past 25 years, of course, albeit under Daniel Levy, sold a player from the academy for more than $30 million. Everything is 25 and below. We don't sell players, whether they came in or they're coming from the academy, for any real money. So this notion that Daniel Levy was selling for profit is bunkers, is bullocks. We make no money from selling off players, but we do sign a lot of players. We're pretty close to $1 billion worth of fees, and that's where most of the money went. Our salary structure is bad. And so what we need to do in the reverse order is in my opinion, if I were putting my director of football cap on and the chairman cap, signings like Conor Gallagher are the ones that we really need. Are we going to go out there and consistently, as we would like to or want to, go sign a player for £65 million, 70 million, 50 million? No. But if you can find a players or a set of players that are going to be 50 million, between 30 and 50, and they're going to give them a decent wage, then you will find players in that range. A Conor Gallagher type of player that we are paying $34 million for, and you pay him a good wage. That just transforms our entire midfield. And so we have to stake out. When I said that we don't want to be like Brentford, if there's a model that makes sense, yes, use it. But in terms of the type of players and where they're beating the bushes to get those players when they're not under pressure to do anything in the league, that is what I'm saying. I'm not saying that we should not be structurally sound. That's not what I'm saying. Brighton is making a whole lot of money for not being in the top 6 consistently. And that's my point as well. So when you look at it that way, you're saying, hey, there's a model that says that if you set your club up structurally well and everything is predicated on football, and we understand and know that everything at Tottenham was not predicated on just football. We take it in segment. The football was suffering. Daniel Levy sought to build the club not through football, but through an infrastructure, which you think the infrastructure will be bringing more. There will be more revenues that can go to the football. Most of the clubs go to the football to get the revenue, and they build that way. So now that that phase is over and we hear Daniel Levy say that, now we can turn to the football. We never turned to the football. We have been in the stadium for what, 3, 4 years, 5 years, however long we have been in the stadium, and we have not turned to the football. And so when Enoch is going to come out, or Charrington or Vinay is going to come and say, well, we have everything that we needed to, right? We have everything that we need to. Now it's time to pay attention to the football. And this is where my rub is with, so if there's a mechanism to get to where you want to and you build the infrastructure, then what are you saying if Daniel Levy is the chairman? Mark, Daniel Levy has close to a 30% stake in the club as well. So let's not forget that. So he's not just the guy who you can just up and go or fire and go get another chairman. In this case with Tottenham, he's a part owner. So we have to factor that in, even though we don't know what is going on behind the scenes. But let's put it this way. If you're going to change the model, right? If Daniel Levy gives you that structure, that infrastructure that turns into what it is, and when he went out and he brought in Scott Munn, if you all are looking to Scott Munn's profile, the guy is all about the aesthetic. He wanted the club to branch out, not from a football level, but to get out there from a PR standpoint, to get into areas to build the club internationally, to spread the name of Tottenham into areas that we have not been into. That is what Scott Munn was doing. Scott Munn was not about the football. Scott Munn wasn't about what was on the pitch. And so Daniel Levy had a little mini-me who can look at the infrastructure and the aesthetics of the club and sold that elsewhere. And that's what Scott Munn was doing. He didn't do anything for the football. Absolutely nothing. So if you're going to take away the football from Daniel Levy, which he wasn't paying attention to, then who are you giving that to? You take that because obviously for 25 years he had it, and the football is for the greater part woeful in terms of our recruit. And now you're putting it into Lang. Daniel Levy brought Lang in. Paratici, nobody because he was or he is, Levy brought him in. Charrington, Levy brought him in. Vinay, Levy brought him in. So in other words, if Daniel Levy is bad at football and he brought in all these football men, just like the coaches and the managers that he had to fire because they do not share his vision of the caliber of players that are going to make the club better based on what he buys. Why do we think the back room that he brought in is going to elevate the club? I have no confidence whatsoever that Lange, and he has to prove me wrong. I don't want to be right. I just think he's useless. You can't have consistently. And I know I'm going on a rant here, talking to myself, pretty much on a rant here. But if you look at the time in between when the windows are closed and what this Lang has produced in between that time to help the club, 2 players, or maybe when it's too late. This is the first time since Lang has been there in 3 years that we get a signing in January that was going to help us in the middle of the transfer window. We waited to the end in the last windows that he had when there was injuries, when the squad closed or the window closes and we did not have enough and we needed January to rectify it. He gave us nothing. And so now we're here and maybe we're turning the corner. You want to believe that it cannot be that bad. You want to believe that Paratici leaving is a good thing. I don't want somebody at the club who is going to be there because he wants to be there. In other words, so what's his purpose? Is he digging into into what we really need? Is his interest there? So if that was the intent, and I'm going to say a thing or two about that, director of football thing, which I think had something to do with Frank and Brentford. And so if Paratici wants to go, I don't feel bad that we are in a window and he's leaving. Go now, because January will be the more pivotal window that we need. There's nothing pivotal about this window. We know what the needs are. It's a matter of whether or not we're going to get those players available. And I believe that after 3 months, we were supposed to be able to have 3 or 4 players in, maybe 3 or 4 players out, because of the caliber that we're looking for and where we need to shop. Are we shopping for the manager to make the team better, or we are just shopping to facilitate the injuries and the lack of quality? We are not going to go anywhere. I'm sorry. I like Gray, I like Bergvad, I like Sarr, but they're kids. Where we are as a club, they are not going to take you where we need to be. Sorry, but I rather watch them, the trajectory of them slowly develop. There's nowhere that I see other clubs, up in the, top 10 onto, the number 1 club, who are having 3 and 4 kids in their midfield. And so before I get back over to Gallagher, it leads me to Gallagher. But let me just finish up the thought on Thomas Frank. I believe that, reading between the lines, follow me on this. I believe that when Vinay, Lange, and Paratici, Charrington came up, concocted this idea that they're going to surround Frank with the parts that mimics what's happening at Brentford. How would they know? How would they know what it takes at Brentford to make Thomas Frank comfortable? That's my question. So this 2-man split director of football positions that were being occupied by Paratici and Lange doesn't exist in any other club. Or if it does exist, there is nowhere to say that this is what brought them success. And so if you're looking for success somewhere, then you have to, or from somewhere, then you have to go for something that is proven to have worked. And so we are here with Paratici and Lange and Vinay, and so we want to amalgamate the position and split it down the line between two personnel, which we think will serve us better being at Spurs. And we see that it backfired. This was an attempt. I'm not throwing Frank under the bus. It is only my opinion, and you can disagree with me, that that's an attempt to so-called surround Thomas Frank with what he thinks he needs to go out there and get in the market for players. That they're trying to replicate a system that they think was at Brentford to make Thomas Frank comfortable. I'll tell you this. Frank is not going to get fired. Paratici is going to leave. Thomas Frank is going to be our manager in the going into the January, into the summer window. When this window closes, Thomas Frank will be here, whether or not we like it. He's going to be here for the summer, right? Conor Gallagher, right now, as it is, forget about Sousa. Sousa is a body, a young body. Maybe he's going to get better. Maybe with another signing, maybe we can try and get a what's his name from Juventus, that left back from Juventus, Cambiaso. Very good left back, because Udogie is always injured. That's a player that you can actually put Sousa behind, or he might be that good because we know nothing about him. Maybe his trajectory is that good that he will take off and he will be everything that we wanted. I really and truly believe in this, that a defender is supposed to defend first, and then you take whatever it gives you on the offense. Football in itself has been turned upside down, that we have inverted wingers can service a striker, and now all we want from our fullbacks is that they can go forward. And that is where football is today. And so I might just be an old fart when it comes on to what I'm seeing as football. Tottenham is fans are the only set of fans, and I watch a lot of footballs. I watch La Liga. I watch Lyon. I watch the Italian league, and I watch Bundesliga and the English league. All five, I watch them, okay? And I watch a lot of players. And Tottenham Hotspur fans are the only ones that are asking their number 6 to be creative. We want a creative number 6. Where are you going to find a creative number 6? There's not many Rodri that is out there. And Rodri is not even creative. Rodri is more of a box-to-box kind of guy. He will go up there and he'll pop you a goal. But you're not going to have Rodri. Rodri is not the guy who is there directing traffic. Rodri wins the ball and give it to De Bruyne when he was in full flow, when Alvarez was there, when Silva is on. That's what Rodri does. But it goes all the way back to Wings and Skip, and before that Bentaleb. We're asking our number 6, right? Dembele was never a creative number 6. Wanyama was never a creative number 6. But somehow we're asking our number 6 to be creative. How about they protect the back line? Caicedo, who is probably the best number 6, and Rice, they pop 1 or 2. Zubamendi will pop 1 or 2. But when you look at the overall body of work that they do, when you look at the overall body of work that Gravenbach does, and McAllister, who is a number 8, they are compensating. One goes in the attack and one hold the fort. We're asking, how come we signed Gallagher when we have Palhinha? Gallagher and Palhinha does not have the same profile. Palhinha profile has nowhere close to Gallagher's profile. Can Gallagher play as a number 6? Of course he can. Over a long term, do you want Gallagher to be your number 6? Absolutely not. You go out and you get a number 6 because now you have a box-to-box midfielder. The same thing with Bissouma. Bissouma and Gallagher is closer in profile. And so we are here and we're saying, I read one thing this morning in bold letters. Why do we sign Gallagher, who is the same as Palinia? Why did we go out and sign Gallagher? And I'm like, what? Gallagher is a total different profile. Gallagher is a box-to-box midfielder. Gallagher does a whole lot of things that Palinia doesn't do. Not because Palinia can move up on set pieces. He can force the issue when we are chasing a goal or two and be up in the offense, because that's what's required when you're pressing, and he can pop you one. That doesn't mean that's his profile. He is the spine. That's what he does. He protects the back line. You're not going to ask Gallagher to stand in as the number 6 to protect the back line on a consistent basis. You want Gallagher to be the one who's winning the ball, passing it, making forward passes out on the flat and up to Javi Simons. That allows and frees up the number 6 to do what he does, be a destroyer. Play behind Gallagher, who is a little bit more forward thinking. Why are we asking Palinia to be creative? We're the only club that don't do that. When you look at Rice, yes, he can. Zubamendi, yes, he can. When you look at Caicedo and Fernandez and Gravenbach and McAllister, who do they have? They have a number 10 who makes them look so good behind them. One have Odegaard. The other one has, where am I going with this one now? Caicedo and Fernandez has Cole Palmer. When you look at Gimaresh, who can pop one as well, and Joe Linton makes your middle strong. You're not asking Joe Linton to be creative, even though Joe Linton you would think would be a creative player, being that he was a striker. And Eddie Howe turned him into a darn good number 6. You're not going to ask him to go be creative. You're going to ask him to make sure he protects the back line. But we are asking Palinia to go be creative. How do we square that? I can't understand our thinking. When it comes to football, you sign Gallagher, and here's why you signed Gallagher. To get back to my question, Gallagher divides the base, right? He does, right? So you're going to have Conor Gallagher, and I hate to do it, but I'm going to do it. You have Archie Gray, you have Pape Sarr, and you have Bergvall. Throw Javi Simons in there for heck's sake, right? And off to the side, you have Conor Gallagher. Now, let's look at a number 8 of Sarr, Gray, and Bergvall. Which of them are going to blow you away? Which of them are you going to say, when I'm picking my 11 and I say my back 4 is X, and now I'm going to play in a 2-man pivot, which I think Gallagher would be better in a 1-man 4-1-2-3. I think he'll be better served that way. I think the team would serve better because Palinia covers so much ground that I think him playing behind a 2 creative player put Gallagher next to Simons, that would suit us better. That's my opinion. I'm just an old coach that look at things sometimes differently, because Palinia is still good laterally. If he was, struggling, to move in lateral, then I would worry about playing him in a 2-man pivot to get him help on his weaker side, which probably would have been let him stay left or let him stay right, so you don't have to extend him. But right now, Palinia can move lateral and he can move vertical. So in that case, I would have split him between the 2 center backs, since we're pushing up the fullbacks. That's just what the manager is doing. So I'm not taking anything away from the manager. I'm just saying I would have used Palinia different. So you can isolate him, between the 2 center backs. But that's just my thinking as I go. So when we're picking the midfield, and you look at your board, who are you going to pencil in at the number 8? Doesn't matter if we're playing a 4-1-2 or we're playing a 4-2-1-3. It doesn't matter. With Gallagher now in the fold, and you look down the line, somebody tell me who you're going to put next to Palhinha. Palhinha is penciled in. There's no question about that. We don't know where Bissouma is, or whether or not he's going to be a part of the mix. And then the next, we're looking at Gray, we're looking at Bergvall, and we're looking at Sarr. And then we're going to look at Gallagher. Who are you penciling in into that lineup? It's a no-brainer. The quality of Gallagher it supersedes all 4. And I'm bent on Kirby because he's injured. And even a fit Bissouma, who I actually like. It is a no-brainer. So when fans are asking, why did we sign Gallagher? We signed Gallagher, right? Which one of the things I don't endorse, right, as a narrative, you should never sign a player because he's better than what you have. That's not the way to look at how you sign players. And again, that's just something that I think is a narrative that we get into. You don't sign Gallagher because he's better than Bergvall, Sarr, and Gray. You sign Gallagher because he's the best that is available to you that will make the team better. Because you can go out there and find many players who are better than all 3 or 4 that I just named. You don't go out and sign a player because you couldn't do worse than what you have. You go out there and you sign a player who is going to make you better. So the next time then that we're going to sign another player, once the January window closes, and you assess the work that Conor Gallagher does. Now you have your number 8. You have a number 8 that you can look at and I said, okay, I need to lift the standard. I need a better number 8, right? I need to go out there and I need a better number 8. And then you start looking and say, oh, if I want a number 8 or a number 10 in the case of Javis Simmons, well, let me look at Yildiz. That's a baller right there. If you're looking at Kudus and you said, okay, well, Kudus is the best that we have, right? And I'm looking for another player. You're going to look at, is Akilush? You can look at him because he is on par with Kudus. You don't sign him because he's better than Odebeer or better than Matisse Tell. You sign him because he's of a higher caliber and he will make the team better. That's why you sign him. You're not going to sign him if he doesn't have the profile of what you want because he can be better elsewhere. But him being better than what we have is going to serve the team. That is how you sign players. There are a lot of players who are better than what we have, by far. So that's a narrative that I actually do not like. I hate it, and I continue to hate it. Hate is a strong word. I just don't like it. And our fans seem to gravitate towards that kind of thinking. I don't. I think that you go out there and you sign a better player than what we have. That will take the team up a notch. And so now, if you're saying, okay, for some of the people who are talking, I am neither here nor there with Palhinha. But in the moment, right, there is no one better in the squad. We have a number 6 that is reliable. That's what we know for a fact, right? That Palhinha is reliable, healthy, and is there just about for every game. Of course, he's in his 30s, so he needs the blow once in a while. Now, if you're telling me that you're going to look for a number 6 and you're talking about not João Pedro, but João Gomez, And you're saying, do I re-sign Palinia or do I go out there and I sign Joe Gomez? When you compare that, 27, 28 million for a 30-something-year-old Palinia, and I'm going to sign a Gomez for 42. I'll take Gomez every day. Maybe I can take him and put him on top of Palinia. And when I want to play with a two-man pivot, a 2 6s, then I have a youngster and a senior pro that I can drop in there. Maybe I can have a senior pro like Palinia, and then I will have Joe Pedro, who will have more legs. That means when I need somebody in the second half to hold the game down, when I need to give my young buck a breather, then I know that Palinia is coming in because we're playing every 3 days. So you're not going to miss him. You're not going to say, well, then we are lacking in the number 6, because that's what a good squad does. You are supposed to be able to look out there. When you look, you see everybody in tandem that are playing. Just for example, when you look out, we expect it. We expect to see Romero and Van de Ven, just from a pure selection standpoint. Both are healthy. Everything is going great. They don't need any rest. You expect to see Van de Ven and Romero as a pair in center back. That's how it has always been to every club. I don't care if Danzo came in and played the world. I don't care if Dragoshin or anyone, Ben Davis, come in and play and give you a world game. Then if they're coming to give them a breather, they're going back in there. That's the way it has been. What happened is that when you're losing, you start having all these conversations. Well, look at Danzo. He played a good game. No, Danzo is there to back up Romero. End of story. I don't care whether or not you want to say Romero is not a world-class player. Ben Davis is shot. When Ben Davis comes in and have a world game, Van de Ven is coming back the next game, unless something is wrong. That's how it has been with clubs that are winning. You don't rest Van Dijk, and because Gomez has a good game, then you sit Van Dijk. It doesn't happen anywhere else. And these are just little narratives that we have when our club is floundering, when our club is not as attractive as it's supposed to be. And hence, when we sign a player like Conor Gallagher, we're trying to find, hear this, we're trying to find everything that is wrong with Conor Gallagher to say that he's not a good signing. We're trying to find some excuse. Oh, Bergvall is not going to get enough minutes. He shouldn't be getting it in the first place if you have quality. Oh, Gray's not going to develop. No, he will. Because what he will have somebody to learn from. That's what will happen to Gray. He will sit on the bench, should sit on the bench, and I know he's a very astute young man, and realizes, how do I play this position? How is this position play from a senior pro? You tell me before Gallagher arrived, who was going to teach Bergvall how the position is played? Who was going to teach Gray and Sarr how the position is played right now in this squad? You're not going to ask Bentancur. You're not going to ask, what's his name, Bissouma, because there is actually none who can lead by example. And we're complaining that we signed Gallagher, the caliber of Conor Gallagher. We are complaining as fans. We are absolutely deluded if we think that Gallagher, he might not succeed to the way we want him to because of many, many different things. Same thing with Frank. Frank, who has been successful, limited success, because we keep going back to Brentford. But I can look at you and said, Thomas Frank has not won anything. But he was successful based on the project that he has to bring forward. And he brought Brentford from where they were to where they are now. His imprints are all over it. We can say the same thing about Areola. We can say the same thing about Glasner, but Glasner has won before. So when we look at it and we look at kind of Gallagher and what he brings, he's bringing experience. The man has been Chelsea's captain. We're nowhere near Chelsea. And we're getting their former captain from a man who made him captain, who we think has the pixie dust to fix Tottenham. We want Pochettino back. So therefore, here's the thing. If you want Pochettino back and you have a Pochettino disciple, who is better to be in the team? Who is better to come and lead with some principles of the man that we all idolize? Well, I don't idolize Pochettino. I think Pochettino has a world of flaw. I think Pochettino can pick an 11. Don't get me wrong. I think he can pick the best 11 from a squad, whether it's good or bad. He can play a game up to 70 minutes. After that, he is lost at sea. I know you all don't want to hear those things about your deity, but that's just my opinion. I've never seen Pochettino get tactical. When I talk about tactical managers, even Arteta I will give credit. When I talk about tactical manager, I talk about Unai Emery, Pep, and Eddie Howe, and Glasner, and Areola. I don't know too much about Andrews, so I'm not going to put him on the list as yet. You can see what they're doing. Luis Enrique, you can see what they're doing to change the trajectory of a game. Ancelotti, I don't see that from Pochettino. He doesn't grab me as a man who is going to make a drastic change and in substitution and tactics to claw a game back. I don't see that. I've never seen it. I know that he can pick an 11 and he's going to beat you with his 11. But after that, I don't see Pochettino game after that. And that's just me. So for me, Pochettino coming back is a no. Let me just say that for official. If he comes back, would I support him? Absolutely 110%. I support just about every manager until they give me a reason. And that is why I'm going to support Thomas Frank until he gives me a reason. And now with the squad that he has, that he inherited, I'm just saying that when you cut it down the line, I'm going to wrap it up in the next 2 minutes, 3 minutes, with Gallagher and, so to speak, with Palinia, being the number 6. I think that this is the start of building the squad and putting it back together. The notion that we're building a squad for someone else, I don't want to even think about that. I want to see what next move we are going to make. I think Conor Gallagher, in wrapping everything up, if you're just joining me, thank you for joining. I appreciate it so much. You can subscribe to the channel. I would appreciate that so I can continue to do this. I have no intent in monetizing because I want to speak my mind. I want to give it unvarnished from my perspective. Let's talk football, less personality, less of the drama. So if in this window we want to talk about football and we sign Conor Gallagher, obviously Gallagher's signing is going to transform the club. Although my man Brennan Johnson, who I like actually, I tend to talk about players I like. I like Brennan Johnson because Brennan Johnson gives me how I view football. If we sign Conor Gallagher, and he transformed the midfield in this setting, then that's what I want, right? Here's my rub here. When I talk about Brennan Johnson, we sold Brennan Johnson and we have Kudus. Even though Kudus is injured, I don't want to beat him up while he's injured, but Kudus, I'm giving you chop here. If you look at Semenyo for City, Semenyo plays within the frame of the goal when the ball is on the weak side. Kudus does not. You're not going to score if you don't get in the frame of the goal often when the ball goes out to the left. Because remember, Kudus is supposed to be your best player on the right. And I made this point before. What you find Kudus doing is that he's hanging out outside the 18. That's for the number 10. And your number 8 pushing up. He's supposed to now go inside the box and bring his fullback to hold the other fullback in, or the midfielder or the winger deep. But if Kudus is hanging out there, then the fullback is not going to go inside, which is why I use him when you say, why would you compare Brennan Johnson to Kudus? It's not a comparison. It's an observation. Kudus does not go inside the box. Brennan Johnson, the minute the ball comes down the middle or it goes wide, is going to be within the framework of the goal. Does Brennan Johnson have all the skills that Kudus has? Absolutely not. Not even close. But if you look at where Brennan Johnson presents himself, he's going to score a lot of goals. He has done it because I've researched it and see what's the problem with Brennan Johnson. I was trying to figure that out when he came to Spurs. What is the problem that everyone is talking about? And I wasn't looking for the problem, so to speak. I was looking for the reason why he scored 20 goals. And I saw that with all the lack of skill and footwork and him being lazy, what he has was speed, which you can't teach. And he doesn't have the fancy footwork and all that, not the best controller of the ball, but you bet you if you put that ball through, he's going to latch on to hit it. The objective of any forward and the game of football is to get the ball in the back of the net. That's supposed to be the objective. And Brennan Johnson epitomized what the objective of football and forward and strikers are supposed to be. I don't want to hear that I pay $65 million for a striker and he is good at holding up the ball. I don't want to hear that I pay $65 million for a striker and he's good at pressing the ball. I want to hear that I paid $65 million for a striker and he's putting the ball in the back of the net. I don't want to hear about his fancy footwork, just the way I don't care about Brennan Johnson's footwork. I care that when the winger goes in or the number 10 has the ball, he has an outlet, put it in the box, chances are Johnson is going to score. That is what I want to know. I don't know that about Kudus. One person I know that about, which I think would have been a better player, not the sexy player that we all want, is Jared Bowen. Would put the ball in the back of the net because their objective is not to show you how skillful they are, but how they can get the ball, manipulate their way, whether by force or finesse, to get the ball in the back of the net. We talk about Haaland does nothing. Excuse me, you have to work hard to be able to score goals. That is the objective. And that's why I don't understand the criticism of Haaland. Harry Kane was doing the same thing until we could not supply him. It was one through ball and Harry Kane bang it in the back of the net. Harry Kane is not quick. He's not fast. But what he has is guile. He learned that as Eriksson was never replaced. We didn't have a creative player. So he figured out that he could drop deeper and use the rest of his skill. Lautaro Martinez, same thing. He's at number 10. We think he's a striker. And if you ask Martinez, he would tell you that he's a number 10. He's not as creative as the regular number 10. He's a different profile kind of number 10. Just the way you saw him play when you have Lukaku. Lukaku was a striker. Unless you want to say, hey, Conte was using two strikers. But normally when you're playing with a number 10 or a creative player underneath the 2, you have a 9 and a 10 and a number 8. And Eriksson was a number 8 and Boskovic, whatever it is, when they were both at Milan. but their profiles are all different. But the objective from anywhere on the pitch is to get within the frame for attackers, whether you're a winger or you're a striker, is to get within the framework of the goal. Kudus doesn't do that. And so that's the reason why I'll say that if you give me Jared Bowen, I'll take him any day over Kudus. I would take Brennan Johnson, believe it or not, playing off the right in a Spurs team and bring Kudus off in the middle or off the left. And I made that point before Johnson was sold, that the idea and the narrative that we keep talking about, oh, he just score. What is the objective? The objective is to get the ball in the back of the net, and Brennan Johnson does that with regularity. With all the lack of skill and everything else that we want to talk about when it comes to Brennan Johnson, he has the one objective: get in the box, get it within the frame of the goal, and score. And that's it. That you want from your player. I don't want my best player to be hanging out and not doing what he's supposed to do, is give service to the striker. Our strikers don't get the service that they want because our wingers are busy dribbling the leather off the ball. And I just went over there because I want to pack everything in. But I'm going to wrap it right here. I'm going to wrap it. It is the same thing, the same conversation. And I think this is the last one I'm going to have as it pertains to Conor Gallagher. And then we'll probably get to how he's performing as the window moves and we start to play more games, and we could see the effect or not that Gallagher will bring. Where I think the healthy one out of everyone. Now, Sarr is still out there at the cup, so it's going to be a lot of minutes for Gray to have until he comes back. Benton Kerr is out. So Gallagher going to have to shoulder a lot of that work. And Frank is going to have to figure out in a depleted team with Kudus, a lot of minutes there for Tell, lots going to be there for Oda Bear. And Kula Moana needs to step up, with Solanke coming back. And then obviously we have Javi Simmons, who is rounding in, beginning to look good. I think Gallagher is going to help him. He doesn't have to come as deep as he was doing, which I like that, as he got it, that he needs to come deep to help out Romero. And one of the other things that will happen with this, as I wrap up, is that the ball needs to go to Gallagher and Simmons and less with Romero. I think playing out the back, with the ball going to and I probably just do a video on that all by itself, playing out the back with Romero. And how much he actually stunned the offense. There's some things that we used to do when we have Alder Worrell, and I think Kuti would have served if you look back at some of Alder Worrell's tape, how he could ping that ball over. You have speed in Tell, you have speed in Odebeer. Now you're going to have a big man in Solanke who is playing off the shoulder of the defense, and some of those balls need to go up there playing out, not from Vicario. Vicario is booming those kick back in the 70s kind of English way of playing. I don't think that is helping. And Richarlison can't hold the ball up for crap. And who else needs to step up? Yeah, that's about it. Signing Souza, as a healthy body, if and when Udogie comes back, I think that will help, because we'd now be able to move Spence over to the right side and give Porro a long rest. I think they should be platooning each other, and that makes us a little bit more flexible. If Porro is having a good game and you want to, then if you want to split the time with Spence and the Souza, you could always bring Porro on, if you want more oomph in the attack, putting crosses in, then now you could actually put Spence over there as more experience for Souza. If Souza turns out that he can really whip those balls over, like the Robertsons, of Liverpool, then you'll say, well, then you got, exactly what is needed to be able to get that ball, diagonally across and into up, to Solanke. Let's hope that these two signings actually transform what we're doing. Let's hope we're beginning to see Frank putting his imprint tactically on what is going on. I'm going to leave it there. Thank you for watching. Thank you for hanging out. Thank you for your comments. Thank you for visiting the site. I'm going to continue to do more of this. Just my opinion on here, and so maybe I'll come back later on if time allows me to do. I'm working on other things. I do have a gig I'm preparing for on the weekend, so I have to prepare the music and the playlist and stuff like that, hence the DJ in my name. I'll see you. Peace, and I am out of here. Be good, walk good. Until next time, I'm DJ Paul for Tottenham Hotspur USA, and come on, you Spurs.